soon.
Absolutely. And so thanks to both of you for being willing to share and lead us through things today. So I'm really grateful for that. And we'll go ahead and get things into it. I'm going to ask, would either of you like to share your screen and lead? So I'm happy to play the slide clicker, but it's up to you. Going once? Going
Can we just point to you to click? Can we just do that?
Let's do it. One of these, yeah, official. All right, there it is. Da, 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 the distance, learning, playbook. Go ahead.
Okay, so yes, many of you, like Andrew had said, participated possibly in the training that happened a couple weeks ago on the distance learning playbook. Some of you maybe just have the book and you've been reading the book. To be completely honest with you, we did not participate in the webinar, but we have been studying the book. Plus, we are just huge John Hattie fans and have spent a lot of time looking through his work, utilizing his work, applying his work, sharing his work. And we did a podcast with Andrew last week on dynamic designs for interactive learning. And so we thought this was a great way to kind of mesh those two worlds together. So we know many of you have really been spending time with this book or with Hattie's work. So we just thought we're going to spend the first 20 minutes kind of synthesizing the big things that we got from this chapter. We'll share them with you. We really want this to be interactive and conversational. And then when we go into the breakout room, we'll kind of show you the application and how we have taken some of this work and we have put it into kind of a presentation, if you will, to share with teachers. So our learning, thank you. Wait, right on cue. So our learning intentions for today are really to pull out from that chapter in the book some of the historical models of engagement, as well as where we're going now in terms of models of engagement, which is the what and the why. And then second of all, we really want to share the how. The book talks a little bit about the functions, which Kristen, do you want to sing your song?
Conjunction, function, what's your, I don't know the words. I just remember it as a child and it immediately came to my mind when we started talking about the function of something matching the tool.
People
so yes, that will be the
show with lunch here as well.
No.
That was great.
And her dance moves, like between her singing and her dance moves, that might be another breakout session.
Love it.
So the second thing we really want to share with you today is the how. So we'll talk a little bit about the functions and the tool, and then really our breakout session is going to go more into the how. So what are some specific tech tools that you can use to cause engagement?
Causing engagement. So I do want you to play along with both Amy and I and Andrew today. Our energy is contagious. And that's how our brains work. We have mirror neurons and we will mimic and follow what is in front of us. And so setting that high standard for engagement. So what I want you to do is put your 5 fingers up to your camera. I want to see the 5 fingers next to your face. And what I want you to do is to, and please do so, if you can. If you're eating, it's okay. It's all right. Just listen in if you're eating. But if you have hands free, your hand is at a 5, and I want you to close your eyes. I will model that. Close your eyes, and I want you to truly visualize a level 5 engagement. From 1 to 5, what would 5 feel like, look like, sound like? I'm going to give you just a few moments in time to put this in your mind's eye. You are imagining engagement level 5. And you can open your eyes. You can put your hands down. In the chat, can you name this movie? We have given you kind of a range of 1 to 5, and we've given you a sneak peek of a GIF that describes kind of the emotions of a 1 to a 5. Now, I will say, to be at a 5 is a lot of energy at one time. You don't live at 5. We're going to visit 3, 4, and have moments of 5. And the moments of 5 are incredibly powerful. We're going to talk about those as driving moments.
For extra credit, if you could name the guy on the left.
In the chat.
Or what his character's name was.
Gordon Bombay?
His character's name. His character's name. I know all of you are like, Emilio. Does anybody know what his character's name was in Breakfast Club? Ooh, Eileen. Andrew Clark was his name. Good job, Eileen.
Good name. Good name.
Okay. Speaking of engaging the chat, I always am so thankful for people that have high expectations for their Zoom audience, because the higher you set them, the more likely they're going to rise to that occasion. So when we ask a question, please feel free to type in the chat. If you would like to unmute, because we did talk about how this is conversational, please do so. You may happen to talk over one another like Amy and I did, but we will figure things out. It's just you're part of the conversation. So Zoom expectations today, we're hoping that you're living at a 3, 4, and then visiting a 5 along with us. So please engage the chat as much as you can.
Because we keep mentioning John Hattie, we just felt like we really need to start by grounding ourselves in his research. Many of you were here last week when we learned from Karen Flores, and then also had a special guest of John Hattie himself. We will be referencing some of the effect sizes from his 250 influences. So we just wanted to ground you in that research, knowing that, and I pulled the visual from last week because I really appreciated the additional, it's not just red, green, blue. I really appreciated how she broke that down. And so I pulled that visual from last week. The key is that 0.40. So we will try to be making sure we are aware of that hinge point of 0.40, which equals a year's worth of growth in a year's worth of time. And several of the strategies or influences that we'll be sharing today will mention where those fall kind of on that spectrum. So we just wanted to ground you back in Hattie's research. That will kind of be our pulse, if you will, as we're talking about these different strategies and influences today.
Okay, speaking of grounding, let's just ground ourselves. Our intention today is to really take a look at our historical and now contemporary models of engagement. Historically, research tells us how the brain operates, how to go about engaging our students and our learners, and what really works, we keep. We are also in the mode of experimenting and taking risks and finding out what more novel ways there are to engage our current Gen Z learners. If you don't know much about Gen Z learners, check out Dr. Tim Elmore. There's a lot of information about our current learners and how they operate in the world that they live in today, the information age. So we're gonna go closely and look at what and why. Okay, the what. So fostering student engagement. Classroom instruction decisions are based on 4 emblematic questions. Here's kind of a historical. Here's something that both Amy and I use often. It's Dr. Robert Marzano's work in terms of if you could answer these 4 questions with a yes, then you are likely to be engaging. So I want you to consider what those 4 questions could be. So right now, you are making that consideration. You are taking that hypothesis, that prediction. To help you with that, down below, in different fonts, because it emphasizes something different. It says that information is, if it's not interesting, your working memory will not process it, will not synthesize, is the word Amy used earlier. If information is not deemed important or relevant, your working memory, it might take it in and process, but it's not gonna maintain it, it's not gonna retain it. So thinking about that, what would these 4 emblematic questions be? So in the chat, if you could just pop in what you think one of the 4 questions could be that a student would ask himself or herself, or a teacher, if you're reflecting, you're asking yourself. Is it relevant? Do I care? Am I interested? What does this matter to me? Why does this matter to me? So Andrew's gonna click because I think this is animated. And what's beautiful is as these are popping up on the chat, there we go. How do I feel is the first one. A lot of times we ask, what do kids need to know and be able to do? But really the initial first question is, what do students, kids, learners, what do they need in order to learn? And that's all about the feel. Okay, keep clicking, Andrew, go for it, because it's going as fast as the chat is. Am I interested? Boom, someone put that in the chat. Next one. Is it important? Boom, someone put that in the chat. What's our 4th one? Oh, Hattie talks about efficacy. Can I do this? And then Hattie talks about teacher collective efficacy. As a group of teachers, do we fully believe that our students can learn? If we do, that is so powerful. Eventually reject it.
Thanks, Michelle. I loved the humor in yours. Is this on the test? That wasn't one of the 4 questions, but that's funny. So when we also are thinking historically, and by the way, we did try to put a page number on some of these slides. If you do have the distance learning book, Playbook, and you want to know where to find some of this information. So this particular slide right here, this comes from page 104 in the distance learning playbook, where they talk about historically, we reference engagement kind of in these three categories, where we talk about behavior, cognitive, and emotional. And then the book takes you to a kind of a new way of looking at it, which is this continuum, which we're going to get to in a minute, but I just want to break down this historical model a little bit for us before we go to the continuum. So historically, they break it down into behavioral, cognitive, and emotional. Behavioral, if you were to walk into a classroom and see students all paying attention, all looking at the teacher, all sitting upright in their chairs, it's all very behavioral. It's all very compliant. And oftentimes that's what we would call engagement, that they're just being compliant, but it's really all about their behavior. We have no idea if they're really thinking about what we want them to think about. That would fall under cognitive. If you were to walk into a classroom and you see behavioral and cognitive, not only are they sitting and behaving the way we want them to behave, but they're also, their thinking is visible. You're seeing them interact. You're seeing them have conversations. Kristen, thank you. Thank you for the ad lib. I should be doing like, yeah.
I got your back.
I know you do. It's awesome. And then emotional, that doesn't mean tears. Emotional means that they feel a sense of belonging. And when a student feels safe and when you have the relationship, you know that you are willing and eager to take risks. You know that you're able to be curious and ask questions and engage in lots of dialogue and conversations as a group. Boom. Now we're going to move from kind of that historical to this continuum, which you can find this also in the book.
On page 104. I love this continuum. I added the 1 to 5 of engagement level. The visualization is really powerful. Even if you're not quite in the mood, if you use your imagination, it helps you get there. So the 1 to 5, remember you're visiting 3, 4, sorry, you're living in 3, 4, and visiting 5. But look at these categories from disrupting, avoiding, withdrawing, participating, investing, and all the way to what I would refer to as level 5 as you are driving. So your students are the knowers and the doers in the classroom. And guess what? They have both hands on the wheel, invested, relevant, important, empowered. So think about the middle as being very passive, and as Amy was describing, very compliant behavior, eyes forward, eye contact, head nodding. But when you get more into the active range of investing and driving, that means that the thinking, which is very elusive, as teachers, we know we are trying to see their thinking. We need strategies that help bring that forward, so that not only the teacher can assess the learning, but there's peer assessment, and then there's also that ultimate goal of self-assessment. Boom. Boom.
Okay.
Yep, next. Yep. Oh, wait, go back.
Oh.
Is there a Hattie slide? There we go. Okay. So of course we're going to align Hattie's research if we're going to talk about, okay, so what strategies get you to that level of 3, 4, and then visiting 5. When you look at time on task and you look at questioning, of course, we're getting very used to these effect size or impact sizes and how powerful they are beyond the 0.4, a year's worth of learning and a year's worth of time. The one that I did want to highlight the most, and it's the 1.33, more than 3 times the speed of learning, is when a student can self-assess. Metacognitive, thinking about your thinking. If you can do that, that means you have both hands on the wheel and you are also determining the direction you're going to go. Amy, thanks for having my back. I want to also mention if we go to the other side of the spectrum of disrupting and avoiding, that is also an active act. It's an act because it takes effort to do so. And it may be boredom. It may be anxiety. That's that emotional piece that we also address, that we have this good balance and we can try to push forward on that continuum.
Okay, that was really fast and furious. See what I did there? See what I did there? That was really fast and furious for our learning intention 1, but we want to honor our lunch bunch time, and we only have 3 minutes before we get to our breakout sessions. So learning intention 2 is the how, which really what we want to highlight with the how is, go to the next slide for me, Andrew. I didn't do a very good job of pointing. What we really want to consider with the how is knowing what is the goal, what is it that we want them to learn, and then once we've identified that, we find the tool that will help us get to the learning. So I really love this quote. I pulled it from Twitter. The tools are only as good as the hands that wrap around them. You are the craftsman. The teacher is the craftsman. There you go. This can be found on page 105 of the book. So when I mentioned before that you really want to know what it is that you want them to learn, and then you find the tool that will get them there. This visual that's on page 105 is an example of that. So on the far left column, if what we're wanting them to do is find information, if that's the function that we want them to do, then you look over to the far right. That's the tool that's going to help us do that. If the function is using information, then a potential tool that will help us get there is on the far right. Evernote, Flipgrid, Grammarly, Play Post-it. I don't know that one. If we want them to create information, then the tool is on the right. So this is an example of that. As we gear up for breakouts, which are going to be happening in about 1 minute, we're going to share with you what the learning is that we want them to achieve, and then we're going to share with you. So we're going to have the function as well as the tool that will help us get there.
Thank you, Kate, for sharing.
Thank you. I knew we'd learn from you guys as well today. I'm going to play with Play Post-it.
Okay, so I'm trying to get the breakout room thing to work, and I am not able to figure that out right now. So I'm trying to decide if we just want to everybody be in the same space together, or what are you thinking, Kristen and Amy?
We're full of flexibility and grace. So if you want to keep on rolling, we can keep on rolling. If you want to break us out and you figure it out, we're game.
I think it had to do with the fact that I was in present mode, because now I actually have the opportunity. So I'm gonna ideally give you the option to go to a different room, and then if you would like to choose number 1, then you would choose that door. I think for the sake of, and then Amy and Kristen would lead in that space. So if you would, let's see if I've done this right. Help me out if you're seeing this.
What are our 2 options?
You know what? Let's just roll with it. I'm gonna give you guys the floor and continue in the same capacity I've been supporting everybody in. Okay.
If you give us,
Your microphone, Andrew, is having a lot of feedback on your microphone, Andrew, or on your headphones. On your headphones.
Okay.
And Andrew, if you wouldn't mind, I will share my screen.
And since you're giving us the floor, we're going to break dance all over it in this breakout. Just letting you know.
I'd expect nothing less.
Yep. That's a good idea to share your screen, Amy, because I know as interactive as we are, you're going to need to have your hands on your mouse pad.
Yes. Does everybody see that okay? I know it's not in present mode, which I'm totally cool with, but can you guys see my slide okay? I'm getting a thumbs up. Okay, so if you click on that bit.ly, it is going to take you to a template that you will then make your own copy of. And it is a note catcher that has a space for you to take notes, jot some things down from what we're going to share with you. And it also has some links in it. Some of them are screencastifies on how to do some of the strategies that we're going to share with you. Some of them are links to other places. There's just some resources in the note catcher. So that's for you guys to use however you so choose. Are you able to open the note catcher okay? If you can, give me a thumbs up.
If not, I'll put the long link in the chat.
Yeah, might
Okay.
need the long link. I've got an error as well.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. Okay. So we thought we tested this last night and it was working, but I will let Kristen have my back here. Okay, while she's doing that, I'm going to move on because I know we have very, very precious time here. So what we are going to be experiencing with you in the next 15, 20 minutes is a lot of what our podcast also shares. So where this came from is we have a lot of our school districts, much like you all do, where we have teachers who are asking how they can make their lessons more interactive. How can we make our lessons more interactive, whether or not we have students who are in person, or we have students who are fully remote, or maybe we even have a hybrid situation. And so we wanted to take some strategies that maybe are ones that they're already using, and how can we elevate those, or how can we shift them so that they can be interactive in whatever scenario you are in or whatever environment you are in. So we chose to utilize the Jigsaw, partly because this is an oldie but a goodie, and the effect size for the Jigsaw, I believe, is a 1.20, where if we know Hattie's research and the fact that a 0.4 is that's triple the speed of learning with an effect size of a 1.20. So Jigsaw is the strategy that we started with. Most of our teachers know what the Jigsaw strategy is, what that sounds like, looks like, but just to kind of bring you back, it's a cooperative learning strategy. I'm going to actually go to the next slide, which gives you the steps. So if I were to share this strategy with a teacher, I would re-emphasize how the steps of the strategy work, where you put learners in a group based upon a topic. So if our topic was natural disasters, and we wanted students to get into groups on that topic, we would have a group of students that are working together that are going to become experts on tornadoes. Another group is going to become an expert on a hurricane, another group an earthquake, and so forth. Those learners are going to get together, become experts, and then they're going to go back to their original group and teach the original group about their topic. That's the general Jigsaw. Most of us in this room know that strategy, use that strategy, could teach that strategy. I know I'm preaching to the choir here in terms of what a Jigsaw is. Well, I'm going to share with you a little bit on how you can shift this to a virtual learning environment, or a remote learning environment, or possibly even hybrid. So I have taken a lot of tips and tricks and ideas from Twitter. So I want to make sure that I give credit where credit is due. And the Iron Chef was a strategy that I saw from someone on Twitter. And so they took that theme, which anytime you can attach in a theme or create an experience, you're going to elevate the engagement, which is what we're talking about here today. So this slide here just has a quick snippet from the TV show Iron Chef, which is how I would give some background knowledge to the students on, okay, we're going to switch this up a little bit. The gist of it is Iron Chef is where chefs come together. They have to make something, but there's always a secret ingredient. And you have to include the secret ingredient in whatever it is that you're making. So we're going to take that. And here would be our steps if we were to do this Jigsaw in a remote environment and use the Iron Chef theme. So again, we're going to put our students into groups. Now here's a tech tool that if you haven't used, it is called Flippity. And I love Flippity for a number of reasons. You know, it used to be classroomtools.net, I think is what it was called, that had the spinner, which was great, but there are so many other pieces to Flippity that I appreciate. So not only does it have the spinner, but you can also put all of your students into Flippity and you can have them provide you a single name, a lineup, groups of 2, groups of 3, groups of 4, groups of 5, 2 teams, 3 teams, so on and so forth. You can have a seating chart. If you come over here and click on more, you can even have them create fun words with the students in your classroom, which you can even do license plate. Your science teachers can do the periodic table. There's lots of options here. The other thing that they have is tournament brackets. If you want to put your students into tournament brackets, Flippity is just a really awesome tool. So that was kind of like my commercial break on how you put them into teams. So I'm back here. Put them into groups, which this could already be decided. They're going to work together to create a slide deck. They have 20 minutes. The key is they have to include the secret ingredient. I'm always a big advocate for everyone does everything all of the time. Shout out to Anita Archer. There are no passengers. So whenever you are having students work in groups, it's key that everyone has a role. So here's an example of what those roles might be if they were to be doing this jigsaw in a digital world. Now, the secret ingredient, this slide might be shared with them, and they have to use the magnifying glass to figure out what the secret ingredient is, to where you just simply move the magnifying glass over. The first time I saw this, I was like,
oh, so cool.
My gosh, what? So this is layering. All this is layering. So you have your text in one color, you have your thought bubble in one color, and then you have your magnifying glass. And when you move the magnifying glass over, you reveal what the secret ingredient is. So for today, their secret ingredient is that they have to include a GIF in their presentation. So if I were the teacher, I would probably provide a slide deck for them. So I mentioned GIF being the secret ingredient. I just want to give a shout out to GIF. If you don't have the Giphy extension, that is where I get these. So up here, you can kind of see my cursor, which this is custom cursor. Thanks to Lynn Herr, who I think is on today. She gave us this tech tip. Custom cursor is an extension. That's what I'm using. But I'm coming up here to my GIF extension. So not only can I get GIFs here, but if you click on stickers, and I say tap here, it's gonna give me lots of stickers that I can put in my slides so that I can direct students, whether they're doing this synchronously or asynchronously. This just helps guide them on where they need to tap or where they need to click. And there's lots of stickers. I just happen to use the tap here. So for the students, if they were in my classroom, I maybe already have this slide deck created for them. And if the topic was American inventions, they would have to put their team name in here. Their secret ingredient was to include a Giphy. So if it's light bulb, they would include a Giphy. Do you call it a Giphy or a GIF or a GIF? I call it a Giphy or a GIF, but maybe it's like tomato, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so I think so. So that's my jigsaw, whether you are in person or remote, with a few little tips embedded with Giphy, Flippity, stickers. I think that's it. Kristen, you want to go with cooperative graffiti?
I'd love to. And will you click for me, Amy, if that's okay, just so that we can keep on rolling and not disrupt our flow. Cooperative graffiti is also cooperative learning. It is Kagan's strategy. It is point 4 for Hattie in terms of just overall cooperative learning. What is it? It is literally putting their concepts and ideas out for everyone else to see, that whole concept of visible learning. So what does it look like? So I have a group of 4 students here, and they're pictured there, and they have maybe at their table, this group of 4 have a big piece of paper. And in the middle of that piece of paper, there might be a question or a prompt of some kind. So that question might be, what is cooperative learning? So each of the 4 get a different colored marker, if you want to up your game a little bit, a different colored marker for a little bit of autonomy and individualization. And they're going to start putting their thinking down on the paper. Here's what I appreciate the most about this. It's not just visible, but it becomes conversational. So you see the 4 students, and I've given you kind of an indication of how they're thinking. So this young lady who has the green marker, she is thinking in lists. A lot of us do that. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. She's going to list 4 things about cooperative learning. Then we have the other young lady who's more short and sweet and to the point and is going to bullet list, maybe just word phrases. That's just how that's how her thinking becomes visible. We have the 2 young men at the bottom. One of them is a concept map. So you have a strong visual learner here. And then the other one has put it as an equation. So the CL would be cooperative learning. What does that equal? Blank plus blank. So you have a very numerical, analytical thinker. So look at the diversity of thinking and then allow them to conversate about how they would define cooperative learning. They're answering that question, what is it? Then you have your other groups in your room, and maybe you group them by Flippity, or maybe you've chosen, let them choose their groups for that time, or that breakout room if it's in a digital space. They get that opportunity. Maybe there's a different question for each group, but they're all related. So after they put their thinking visible on paper, then they're able to conversate as a small group. Then you might be able to shift groups to look at the next question or prompt that's related but somewhat different, so that it's a constant thinking in motion. So that's just an idea of cooperative graffiti, drawing out their thoughts and ideas and putting it out for the rest of us, especially the teacher, to assess. Here's a math example. I appreciate this. This is not a question, but there's a statement, and you are to justify this statement. You're to provide proof or evidence of your thinking. It says these are all parallelograms, so there's shapes, and then each student is given that opportunity to provide proof that it is a parallelogram, or if they think it is not, to justify that on the paper, then to conversate with one another. And then you can tell this teacher has put the post-it paper on the, looks like a window or a shade, and then they can do a gallery walk and have full discussion. So as that thinking becomes visible, this is where you immediately find out what are the misconceptions, because the goal is to take those misconceptions and transform them into true conceptions cooperatively. You're only as smart as the room, as Andrew said earlier. So a great way to do this, and I would say I would use Jamboard in person. It also works fantastic if it's a Zoom situation or a Google Meet situation, or even self-paced, because you can still, if I do a Jamboard on my own, if I am doing a self-paced scenario and I'm going to put my thinking on this board, other students have access to flip through the boards and still do a gallery walk, even though it was something that I did by myself. So this would be a digitized version of graffiti. Raise your hand if you've used Jamboard. Jamboard is my new jam. I absolutely love it. I could click here, but I'm not sure of time. Amy's gonna do it for me. Thanks, Amy. So here's my Jamboard. Here's just some examples of how you can turn a Jamboard into that big piece of paper where people, your individuals in your group can add their thinking. There are sticky notes, so that's how you can add your text answers if you're providing proof. You can use a sticky note as a label. You can hand draw. You can upload an image. You can adjust or change the background. So the background already has the anatomy right there, the circulatory system, and then they are to label the parts of the circulatory system. And so Amy is drawing right there. Amy, will you click on the additional boards just to see? This is what we've noticed. A lot of teachers are now creating on Jamboard. They're creating their backgrounds and allowing students then to put their thinking on the Jamboard. Jamboard is like a Google Doc or a Google slide deck. It's a way to use creativity and innovation to answer questions, solve problems, but do it in a cooperative way. And just like Google Docs or Google slide deck, you're given a link with which you can send out as a view, send out as edit for all. I like the edit for all because that gives everybody access for each of these boards. But notice, here are some of the historical goodies, the 2 truths and a lie, the pros versus cons. There's a lot of great ways in which to incorporate Jamboard as your form of butcher block paper or that big poster paper.
I will add the note catcher that you have access to. A lot of these templates that we're sharing came from Ditch That Textbook. And there is a link on that note catcher that we shared with you that will take you to these templates so that you can have the templates in your own Jamboard.
The beauty of, yeah, please.
This is Lynn.
Yeah.
I have found in working with Jamboard, the least amount of features are in the web-based version. If people use the app version, they have a lot more options. It will, like, you can start to sketch a cat and it's called assistive drawing, and it will actually turn it into a cat. It also has assistive writing, where if you do handwriting, it will convert it to text. So the features that we see on the web version is the low bar. There's a lot of other features from any version of the app if you come in like through the Android app or the iPhone app. And then just making sure people also know that Jamboards can be distributed in Google Classroom as group assignments or individual assignments, because it's become a big issue for teachers on not being able to track who did what or deleted somebody else's or things like that.
Lynn, I so appreciate you sharing your thinking. Like right now, we are engaged in cooperative learning, and I had no idea about the app version. I cannot wait to start to draw a cat and see how it finishes off for me. That's awesome. I know some teachers are a little concerned about, one, identifying where students are doing their work. And then the other is if a teacher sets the background, if that can be fixed or locked. But that's what I love about Google is most of the time they will take feedback from educators, and eventually those kind of things start to come into play.
Here are
Amy,
a
you
few
grabbed
examples.
yeah.
Here are a few examples that I grabbed from Twitter, and one of these is actually from one of the teachers that we work with. But the first one in the top left here is just a math example where a math teacher put 4 problems up and the question was which one does not belong. It's really just utilizing Jamboard as an interactive tool that you can utilize in the classroom. So then they chose 4 and then they had to defend why they felt box number 4 didn't belong. This one here in the top right, this is a Spanish teacher in one of our schools in the ESU 9 area. And she's a Spanish teacher, so all of her little sticky notes are Spanish words or phrases, and the students had to unscramble them and make them part of a logical conversation. So that was how she utilized Jamboard. The bottom left is a classroom, that's kind of your social emotional. They're using Jamboard to create some hopes and expectations for their class. So it was literally a way for everyone in the class to participate and interact, and it put input in on how and what they are hoping for in the class. Another example, I was just working with a teacher last week she wanted to use Jamboard for annotation. So she put an article in Jamboard and then had students work in groups and annotate the article that she put in Jamboard. She has some students who are in person and some students who are remote. And this was a way that those kids could all work in a group together on the same project.
I will say before I go to this next one, I played with this one a little bit. It doesn't have any limitations for how many boards you would like, and it's free, limitless, whiteboard.fi. If you ever want to check that one out, please do so. It's kind of fun and novel, a little bit different. I want to mention Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers, Steve Irwin, Bob Sass. They've been doing virtual learning very well for a very long time. And I remember being that small child in front of the screen, and I did learn. But think about this elevation of cooperative learning, a Jamboard. If I could have posed a personal question that I was highly invested in to Mr. Rogers and he answered, which he did answer letters. He had his own version of Jamboard. There's some incredible elements that we now have today in this technology and information age to put what historically worked really well and drew people in emotionally to learn. And now we get to elevate it using these tech tools, which is so exciting.
I love it. You just like made me think of like Mr. Rogers sitting there with the iPad and all the, like, he'd be dangerous.
And he would do it. He would do it. He would be embracing Generation Z learners and he would be reaching them where they're at. And that's what we're trying to do right now.
Well, and I also think about the math example I just shared with you was which one of these doesn't belong. I can't remember the song
for that too.
But there is a song for that.
Can we get another song? One of these things? Okay.
Yes.
There it is. So, are we ready for discussion time?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm so ready for discussion time.
Yeah.
This is like, I'm incredibly grateful that we're able to go through this distance learning playbook as kind of our centerpiece. I'm so thankful to our presenters and people who have been signing up for the weeks ahead of time already. But this opportunity for us to just carve out some time to talk shop with one another is so important, to do that informally. And so we're going to cut to some breakouts and encourage you to access, I'm going to actually share in the chat here, a set of questions. Do not feel tied to that, friends. You do not have to get through all 4 of the questions that are posted there. Those are really just there to kind of guide the conversation should you need to do that. But when you get to your breakout, if you would, take a moment to introduce yourself ever so briefly, because we want to spend this time sharing ideas. Discussions, those went well. Super thanks to Amy and to Kristen. Round of applause and all those good claps and vibes and little emoji things that show up in your window. I asked them truly with about 7 days advance notice, because this first one was just on such a tight time frame, and I am so grateful that they were willing to step up and put something together and make this work and share. Their leadership was awesome, and I want to encourage others to be a part of this as well. I'd love to see this be where, I know today we didn't really get to the breakouts, but for there to be an opener, maybe a different person or set of people doing a session and then a second session. And so 3 or more presenters each and every time. If you go email me, or you can even check out the session topics, like the needs that we have for the upcoming weeks. If you feel like you have something to share and would love to have your voice. So please help us with that. Next slide. If you'd like to continue to be a part of conversations that are easier to access because they're on demand, podcast is something we've been invested in. You heard earlier today that both Amy and Kristen shared 3 more strategies beyond the 2 that you got in the breakout as part of a podcast that will come out later this week. And this morning, I was really excited to share. I actually got a chance to speak on Friday with Doug Fisher. Our internet connection was awful, so I had to do a lot of editing to that. But there's about 30 minutes of just dialogue with him about how do we think through some of this work. And it's just an avenue for us to communicate and continue to grow and learn together. I'm somebody who folds laundries and does dishes and listens to podcasts. And so it really is on demand and flexible for any time. Next slide, and we're about finished here. Amy or Kristen want to share this? Are we good with going to next time? We'll just go to next time. So next time which is going to be Tuesday, September 29th, we're going to talk teacher-student relationships, and Molly Ashoff's going to lead us in that main session. Still looking for people for breakouts, so we'd love to have you join us. Thank you for being a part of today, and we hope to see you again in about 2 weeks.